So one topic that I want to talk about is just running backs in the NFL. And this has been a point of conversation for a few reasons, right? I mean, people are talking about how consistently productive Nick Chubb has been with his offensive line with the Browns and how big of a difference that makes. And then, a big point of contention with Jahmyr Gibbs right now. Austin Eckler asking for a trade. Like there's a lot of not only just kind of drama around the position lately, but I think like the stem of all that drama, right, is really rooted in, is the running back position a valuable position worth paying money for, like you see guys willing to pay wide receivers for, or particular tight ends for, things like that. Are they game changers in that sense? And then if you're looking at the free agency market right now, the answer to that is no, right? And I do kind of want to bring up a couple points to challenge that, but obviously Zeke is on the market right now. Lombardi Lenny's on the market right now. Dalvin Cook's on the market right now. Kareem Hunt is on the market right now. And those are just kind of some of the bigger names. There's 4 or 5
There's
other
a
guys
lot of
out
other
there.
names there. So, um, dude, yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. And I think what you have to realize, and what I think people are starting to realize, the NFL for sure has realized, is you're not looking at the running back for the person. You're looking at the running back. It's just become the position. It doesn't matter who you are. And in almost every other position in the NFL, it's player to player. Like you're considering, giving this guy a contract or not. You look at tight ends. I mean, that's pretty, self-explanatory. They're going to get the contract if they're the Travis Kelce's, if they're the Gronkowski's, right? Quarterback, obviously, like, what have you done? What's the guy's name? Where do we see you going? Right, we're going to protect you at all costs. Even like offensive tackle, a lot you're seeing teams invest in them, and
Absolutely.
if you're the right name, they don't just treat that position as just like, oh, we can refill it. You look at the running back position, however, and it has never been as bad as it is right now, in terms of they just look at it as it's just not a valuable position. And you notice what's happening to the position is your durability has become increasingly important, and your ability to do more than just run the ball. And it's not just, oh, do they block? It used to be just, hey, he's going to get downhill, he's going to get you tough yards, and he blocks and he's tough. That's used to be, I mean, the running back position in a nutshell, right? But now it's like, okay, can he run routes? Can we put him in motion? Can we line him up as a receiver? Can we line him up in wildcat? Can he pass protection? Is he good enough to throw the ball if we want to put in a trick? Like all this different stuff is now being evaluated for the running backs, and those are the guys that seem to be getting contracts. And that's why you saw like Austin Eckler was responsible for a ton of the success the Chargers offense had. I mean, he was the sole, like he was like their second top. He might have been their top receiver or top 2 receiver as a running back, and then also led them in rushing. Christian McCaffrey did that in Carolina, and that's why you see him still getting the big contracts. Alvin Kamara, right, kind of did that in New Orleans. You see him getting the big contract. But guys like Zeke, guys like playoff Lenny, where it's not a ton of that stuff. And even Dalvin Cook, you see a little bit of Dalvin Cook out of the backfield, but he's not as good as some of these other guys I just named. And you start to wonder, right? And I think that's why you see the Lions draft like a Jahmyr Gibbs so high, right? Because he is a guy that can catch out of the backfield and do all that stuff. Bijan Robinson to Atlanta got drafted 8th overall. You're seeing teams invest in running backs that can do that. But if you can't do that and you are a good running back, no one's saying you're a bad running back, you're just not worth that investment because of injury risk, because of longevity. It's interesting,
Especially
and
as
it
you
sucks for
get
running
older
backs.
too, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, I think people are less afraid. I have 2 points, right? Because I think you're definitely nailing it. One, you're seeing people less afraid to draft running backs high because that's all the money they're going to pay them, right? That contract is going to be up and they're going to ship them somewhere else.
Yeah,
That is
you're front loading their career success, knowing that they'll probably fall off. I mean, the fall off time is just sooner.
right. And then the other thing is, I agree with you that, and I think this actually doesn't matter a ton for whether or not you're going to see that second contract, because I think, like, regardless of the type of running back you are, it's really tough to see kind of that big money contract. But there are like 2 categories of running back, right? Like your classic running back style that you're, alluding to, more of just like a bruiser, run the ball, right? Your AJ Dillons of the world, your Nick Chubbs of the world, your David Montgomerys of the world. And then you have these more versatile running backs you're referring to, your Ecklers, Kamaras, Jahmyr Gibbs of the world. And they are 2 distinct different roles, right? And that is really what the running back position at least from my perspective, has become is that those are two different positions. I don't know what you'd want to label those positions, whether it's like, between the tackles running back and outside of tackles running back, but like that's what you see now. And that's why, Swift, for example, and I know I was a pretty vocal critic of Swift last year, but that's exactly why he got shipped out of Detroit. It's because he couldn't handle the outside of the tackle work that Ben Johnson needed him to do. And we were just like, screw this. Let's go get a guy we know for sure can do that. Let's bring in Gibbs. And then we'll have, upgrade our inside of the tackle position too with David Montgomery, who has the most, broken tackles all of last season, and is really good after contact, right? And that's kind of what I think most NFL teams are targeting now is they're having one guy for each. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, right? The list goes on with that. So it's definitely interesting because I think that is a paradigm shift where if you want to see that second contract, you have to know your niche and you have to probably tape your expectations on how big that money's going to be, right?
Yeah. And it's just another thing, the running game. Yeah, if you have a standout star running back, your running game can become really, really great. But if you just have a consistent offensive line and the plays you're calling schematically make sense, like what you see in San Francisco every year before they had McCaffrey, they still had great rushing seasons. And it didn't matter
Right.
who they put back there, Elijah Mitchell, Debo Samuel. It doesn't matter who you put back there. If you block it correctly and you call the right plays, you could put you back there, John, and you're going to get positive yards. Like it's become so much not about who it is, but it's about what you do. And you see with the Dallas Cowboys, Tony Pollard was paid a great amount less than Zeke Elliott, was the better player at catching the ball, at explosive plays, at making people miss, even at breaking tackles at some point last year than Zeke was. But you saw Zeke still getting these carries, and you're wondering, like, why? And you knew, everyone in Dallas knew, Jerry knew, coaches knew that we probably shouldn't have paid Zeke Elliott when we did. And he was a great player when we paid him, but we paid him at his peak. And ever since he got his money, it's been downhill. And it's nothing
Yeah.
against Zeke, but that happens all the time with running backs. They made a huge mistake. They had to pay him. They had to eat that. And now no one's even signed him because he's
Yeah, and
probably
I
asking
can't
for a large
believe,
price tag.
I didn't even mention the fact that what matters more than any of these running back skill sets or their physical attributes or their ability to catch and all of those things that we're talking about, what really matters at the end of the day is blocking scheme. And you're completely right, Mark. It's if the offensive line is above average and the tight ends know their assignment and the offensive coordinators actually setting things up for those running backs to be successful, all they have to do is run the freaking ball. And
I mean,
that's
we
it.
see it all the time. Like look at Minnesota. Delvin Cook's one of the best backs in the league. No one would argue that. But when, and he's been injury prone the last few seasons. When he misses games, fantasy owners should know better than anyone. The second you see Delvin Cook's name go red, all you got to go do is sign the backup in Minnesota, and he produces about the same amount of yards and touchdowns as Delvin Cook would.
Right.
Madison did a fine job as the backup in Minnesota the last few seasons, and he got plenty of reps doing it because Cook was hurt a lot. And fantasy owners should know. I mean, it's not like you're going to have a huge drop off in your fantasy performance because you lost Delvin Cook for a week. As long as you got Madison on waivers, they basically do the same thing, but you have to pay Delvin Cook way more money to do something that your backup can do probably like 95% as well. You might
Right.
not get that extra little push of greatness that you see Delvin Cook flash every once in a while, but that's not going to make or break your team. That'll make or break your team if you're like a team that's right there on the brink of winning a Super Bowl and you add a guy like a Leonard Fournette, like when he went to Tampa, that pushed them over the edge, right? Because he was able to hit some home runs for them. He was able to protect Tom Brady in the pocket, great pass protector. It's small details like that. But if you're just like a normal team and you swing on a running back, not great. That's why I
Yeah.
thought Tennessee should have gotten Derrick Henry traded.